everyone, this is Flomy and you are listening to PHLV Radio.
PHLV Radio.
Reeves Immigration Law Group now brings you Immigration Law on Your Side.
All right, thank you for joining us. It's Kuya Yo from the PHLV radio studio in Las Vegas. This is another episode of Immigration Law on Your Side, brought to you by Reeves Immigration Law Group from San Francisco, California. Attorney Diza will be joining us shortly via Zoom. On our previous episode here at PHLV Radio, we discussed about the adjustment of status or obtaining a green card inside the United States. Pag nandito kayo sa loob ng United States. Tonight, we will be discussing how to obtain a green card or an immigrant visa at the embassy or at the consulate abroad sa labas naman po ng USA. You know, to ensure a smooth transition to the United States, it's vital to define one of the key terms in the entire process of getting a green card when you reside outside of the United States through consular processing. Naririnig nyo palagi yung mga words na yan, consular processing. But what is consular processing and what does it entail? So let's have a closer look at this vital part of the U.S. immigration process. Let's bring in Attorney Diza via Zoom from San Francisco, California from Reeves Immigration Law Group. Magandang gabi po sa iyo, Attorney Diza.
Magandang gabi, Kuya Johan, at of course sa lahat ng viewers and listeners natin ng PHLV Radio. It's always a pleasure to be here and to give public service sa ating mga kababayan tungkol sa kanilang immigration applications dito sa United States. Maraming salamat at it's a very good and timely discussion ang ating pag-usapan because we are going to differentiate anong difference ng consular processing at ng adjustment of status as you mentioned, which is the subject of our discussion nung last episode natin, at ano ang advantage halimbawa an individual is able to or in the United States at gusto rin niya mag-consular process. So ano po yung mga ins and outs ng consular process ang ating discussion ngayong gabi.
All right, so let's get right into it, Attorney. So what is consular processing, Attorney?
Yes, as the term it connotes, Kuya Yo, consular processing involves the consulate, where the applicant resides, specifically the U.S. Embassy. Sa mga kababayan natin dito dyan po sa Manila, Philippines. It is a method of acquiring a immigrant visa through the consulate abroad. So yun po ang paraan, especially for people who are outside the United States at nasa halimbawa home country nila, waiting for the petition to be approved or waiting for the priority date to become available. So, Attorney, nabanggit nyo kanina, the differences between yung pinag-usapan natin on the previous episode, getting the green card while you're here in the United States, the adjustment of status, and then ito naman pag nasa labas ka ng Amerika, yung consular processing. How different is it, Attorney? Alin ba ang mas maganda na nandito ka na or nasa labas ng Amerika? Yes, of course, yung mga may tourist visa, Kuya Yo, or yung mga halimbawa may mga employment visa like L1 or mga H1Bs or E2s or mga student visa na may mga non-immigrant visa sila dito sa United States. There may be a good question saan kukunin ang aking green card or visa, dito ba sa Amerika or dito doon sa Pilipinas. Well, of course, the basic distinction that you mentioned is number one, siyempre yung adjustment of status would be filed while one is in the US, right? And yung versus the consular processing, there is a process, where the individual or the applicant will get the immigrant visa at the consulate abroad kung saan siya nakatira. Yun yung unang basic distinction. Pangalawa, Kuya Yo, would be yung adjustment of status, you file the application, the whole packet at one time. Right, so you file, for example, you're married to a U.S. citizen, you file the immigrant visa petition, right? If if it is a preference category, you file it when the priority date becomes available. Of course, i-attach po ninyo yung approval ng inyong immigrant visa. Plus, and then aside from the petition for halimbawa dun sa spousal or dun sa anak nagpe-petition sa magulang,
i-file na rin kaagad yung kanilang green card, plus yung work authorization and advance parole, and nandun na rin yung affidavit support. So all the requirements needed for the consular processing, isahang filing na, isang application na lang o isang packet, right? And then dito na sa US maghihintay yung applicant ng kanyang interview or ng approval ng kanyang green card. While sa consular process, Kuya Yo, it entails 3 steps. Yung pag-file ng petition, hintayin na ma-approve yan, hintayin na maging available yan kung preference category, and then it goes to different government agencies, yung sa National Visa Center, right? And then eventually doon sa embassy, which pag-usapan natin. So, yun yung distinction ng dalawa. Pangatlo, of course, ang interview is dito sa US for adjustment of status, and then for the consular processing interview would be in the home country, yung sa US embassy or consulate where the applicant resides. So for example, Kuya Yo, yung mga kababayan natin sa Pilipinas, sa US embassy ng Manila, ang kanilang interview. Pero may mga sitwasyon din na lahat naman tayo mga Pilipino, di ba, kung saan tayo napapadpad, right? Kung may mga valid status po kayo, halimbawa sa Middle East or sa Europe, pwede rin yung kunin ang interview ninyo sa US Embassy where you resides. As long as you can provide that you are in a legal status diyan sa bansa kung saan po kayo nakatira o saan po kayo nagtatrabaho. Kasi otherwise, kung wala rin kayong papel diyan, you have to go back. You have to go home sa Pilipinas at doon po kayo magpapa-interview sa inyong immigrant visa application. So yun po yung common distinction, Kuya Yo, ng adjustment of status and consular processing in acquiring a visa. So isa ang goal dito, right? The goal is to obtain yung immigrant visa o yung tinatawag nating green card.
Attorney, a lot of people are curious when we broadcast this topic, and they were saying na, meron kaming as interview sa United States, yung napag-usapan natin last time through the adjustment of status, and ito naman, interview sa labas ng Amerika, which is in the embassy or in the consulate. Alin daw ba, attorney, ang medyo mas nakakatakot? At saan ba sila dapat nervyusin? Yung interview here in the United States or the interview back there in the Philippines?
Well, I can say kung saan ang mas nakakatakot, but the good thing about being here in the US, especially if you are being represented by an attorney, right, is the adjustment of status in the US. Nonetheless, sa mga kababayan natin, regardless of, saan ba kayo may interview, ang aking advice is the key here is preparation, right? Preparation and knowing the process, knowing what are the documents that you need to provide while your application is ongoing, and what documents to provide when you go to the embassy. So it's really important, Kuya Yo, in understanding kung ano yung process. Kasi andun yung kaba, and I always tell my client whether na-interview sila dito sa US or sa Pilipinas, is understanding dung process at dung case. Questions are not difficult. Mas mahirap kumuha ng bar examinations, Kuya Yo, or yung examinations ng mga nurses, right, or other professional examinations. The test or the questions asked at the consulate and the embassy are very personal. It has something to do your personal circumstances and yung kung sino yung petitioner po ninyo, at understanding din kung meron kayong immigration history, right? Kung may mga prior applications po kayo, may mga criminal records po kayo, right? And it's a good idea to have a consultation with an attorney to see kung ano yung mga issues surrounding the circumstances ng inyong application. So, key at Kuya Yo is preparation and knowing the process of your application.
And we're also fortunate that if it happens here in the United States, you guys are here and that they can contact you. But the key to this, mga kababayan, is that if you are in the Philippines, and that's what Attorney Diza was outlining, that if you are represented and then nakapag-prepare kayo ng maayos, medyo mas smooth yan. So, ang office po ni Attorney Diza ay meron po silang representatives or office actually in Makati. So, sila po ang makakatulong sa ating mga kababayan na nandyan sa Pilipinas. Ano po?
Yes, Kuya Yo, especially in at this time of pandemic where it's really hard to get an appointment or make a follow-up of the case. Our team in Makati office in the Philippines, usually make a follow-up by calling the embassy, right? And sometimes the embassy people, they don't respond, and also they're practicing probably yung stay at home or quarantine where there are limited staff. So medyo mahirap talagang makaget through sa embassy ngayon. But with the help of our Makati team, we're able to successfully call them, and some of our clients are able to schedule appointments by telephone and by contacting the embassy.
Wonderful. And we'll put that information on the screen para po matawagan nyo o kaya makapag-schedule kayo ng appointment with our friends from Reeves Immigration Law Group right there in Makati. Attorney, how about, you said that it can happen anywhere in the world. Wherever you are, as long as you have a legal status, pwede silang magpa-interview sa consulate doon. Pwede po ba kayong makontak, attorney, just for, guidance? Kahit kunwari, nasa Canada sila or they're in the Middle East, like what you said. Can they contact you still, attorney?
The immigration practice, Kuya Yo, is a federal practice. Federal meaning that we practice anywhere in the U.S. and federal practice also involves practice to any of the U.S. consulate worldwide. At Reeves Immigration Law Group, sa mga kababayan, for the information ng mga kababayan natin, we have clients all throughout the world. May marami siyempre sa Pilipinas and China where we have offices. But we also have clients in the Middle East, mga Filipinos and other nationalities like Turkish, Israel, Saudi Arabian. So lahat ng mga nationalities, Kuya Yo, right, in Africa and Europe. So may mga client din po kami doon, and we do offer, as we mentioned, yung consultation through Zoom or through telephone, and we also communicate through email, and for purposes of preparation, we also do the Zoom and discuss with our clients the issues surrounding their case or cases.
Wonderful. Nice to know kasi marami talaga nagtatanong even from outside of the United States. Marami nagtatanong dito sa PHLV Radio sa ating program. We have friends from the UK and they're reaching out, and sabi ko, sige, itatanong natin kay attorney if matutulungan po kayo ng ating mga kaibigan from Reeves Immigration Law Group. Attorney, nabanggit nyo kanina yung pandemic, and of course maraming na delay nito. And with regards to the consular processing, ano po ba yung mga naging problema over the past few months or over the year of this past year ng pandemic? Ano po ang mga naging problema natin regarding dito sa consular processing dahil nga dito sa pag-limit ng services ng ating mga consulate offices or mga embassies?
Yes, the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines and other parts of the world suspended or limited the in-person interviews starting March of 2020. And aside from that, Kuya Yo, nagkaroon din ng proclamation ng dating Pangulong Trump ng suspension of the entry of immigrants into the US. So lahat siyan, walang mga interviews except for few limited exceptions kagaya ng immediate family members or children who are about to age out. Yun yung mga exceptions yan. So a lot of our kababayans who are waiting for their visa interviews encountered delays, right? Delays in the interviews, of course. That's number one problem with the pandemic. Pangalawa, Kuya Yo, would be yung termination, right? Many of our kababayans who are waiting for the interviews thought that, this is a normal process. Now, just because there is a pandemic and there was a suspension of the entry of immigrants, and a lot of them, many of them were surprised when they checked the status of their cases online, terminated na ang kanilang application or canceled or refused. So a lot of kababayans natin were really confused, right, on these notices from the online on the status of their cases. Although there's an advisory of the embassy that to disregard yung mga issues na yan, or there also instructions from them saying that if you receive this notice, you have to email the embassy with an attachment of the status of your case, right? Just because, with the 1 year passage ng pandemic, Kuya Yo, wala naman talagang nangyayari. And although ang batas requires you to, your case to be active within 1 year, right? There's also that requirement that if you don't act the case within 1 year, mateterminate ang kaso, mateterminate yung application. It's heartbreaking, especially for kababayan natin who waited for the visa to become available, for 20 years. even the 10-year waiting, Kuya Yo, or even the waiting for the immigrant visa to become available or to get approved, reunification or unification with your family members, the agony of waiting is there, right? And then only to find out, sasabihin sa'yo, na-terminate na or na-abandon na or na-refuse na or na-cancel na yung visa. So people are panicking, right? And with this conflicting notices from the embassy and the NVC. So it's a good idea to consult with an immigration attorney. Many of our clients are issues are like that, Kuya Yo, and we have advised them that not to worry really, but to take the necessary steps, in advising them that these were the actions taken, right? Saying that, for example, we received an interview in March, but it was automatically canceled by the embassy because of the quarantine, and then we made a follow-up on this date, but there's nothing. Those are the things that we recommend our clients is to document what actions taken para maging active yung kanilang cases. So that's for sure a very big issue sa ating mga kababayan, where they found out that the application was already terminated, was already revoked, or was already refused. So keep in mind, you have to do something kasi mahirap din naman na pabayaan nyo yan or hintayin nyo ang embassy, right? That would finally or eventually terminate your case. So do something now. So yun yung pangalawang delay, Kuya Yo. Pangalawang issue with the pandemic is, of course, as we mentioned, the delay. And number two would be yung termination ng mga cases or for inaction.
Mhm. If it's indeed terminated for that reason, pwedeng mag-refile, attorney?
We don't recommend the refile just because, especially for people who have waited for the priority date to become available, right? For siblings and married children, takes about 18 to 21 years, right? And if you're going to refile that, I'm assuming that the petitioner is already of age and there's a possibility that the petitioner already passed. So what we recommend is to take action right away and say reinstate instead of refiling. Request to reinstate or reopen the application, and the applicant is still interested, to pursue the application and explain what actions were taken within the last year para ma-convince ang immigration that they did not abandon their application. And sana man lang ang embassy na intindihan din, Kuya Yo, na may pandemic eh. So I don't know where does these notices, I think nagge-generate sa system nila dahil walang action for 1 year, nagge-generate kaagad na refuse or revoke or terminated na yung application. And I don't know if they can do something about it, or it's just the system that's automatically generate those updates, which is kind of confusing and nerve-wracking, or ang tawag nito sa mga kababayan natin, lalong nababahala dahil nakikita nila yung ganyan. But as I said, that should not be a problem. You have to resolve it and you have to do something para ma-reinstate at ma-revalidate ang inyong visa application.
All right. So maraming ang dulot na problema itong because of the pandemic. Maraming nagbago, travels and everything. And one of the things that might impact you is what if nasa Amerika yung beneficiary attorney on another visa, and then the problem is nag-overstay siya dito sa Amerika. Will that be a problem, attorney, pag bumalik siya for consular processing?
Yes, marami sa mga kababayan natin na let's say they came here 10 years ago, right? And then the parent or the dad or the mom filed a petition for the client, and nakapaghintay na sila ng mga 12 years, 10 years, 8 years to 10 years at sasabihin, attorney, available na yung visa. And at that time, either yung aplikante nasa Pilipinas, diba? So yung address na ginamit, yung sa Philippine address. So that's why once the petition was approved, they forwarded it to the National Visa Center for Processing. No? And then syempre, marami sa mga kababayan natin that they're just following the instructions from the National Visa Center, and they thought that these instructions are legitimate, right? Or that's the proper way of doing it. And I've seen many clients where they follow the instructions up to the letter ng mga instructions, and ultimately mayroong instructions for them to go home, right? Or say that you get an interview notice, right? So everybody gets very happy dahil finally, yung pinakahintay nilang priority date available na, yung pinakahintay na green card nandyan na. But we caution our kababayan that once you overstay in the United States, meaning that more than 1 year na kayong overstay from your allowed entry. So for example, hanggang June of 2020 lang kayo, right? At nag-overstay kayo hanggang June of 2021, right? At umuwi ka after 1 year of overstay, that triggers yung tinatawag nating 10-year bar. So even if available yung petition ng father po ninyo or mother po ninyo, right? And you go to the embassy, then you are not able to get the visa because you accrued 10. You are barred. You are inadmissible for overstaying, right? For 10 years. So the only way to cure that is you file a waiver, meaning that your mother or your father would suffer extreme hardship, pag hindi po kayo pinabalik sa US. And that costs you a lot of money, right? To file for the waiver. There's also another filing fee. And there's also waiting time. So hindi mo rin alam kung ma-approve yung petition mo, Kuya Yo. Kasi ang determination ng bar is after yung visa interview mo at the consulate. So sabi siya ng consul, unfortunately, we refuse you a visa because you are inadmissible for overstaying your visa for 10 years. So in that situation, magpa-file ka ng waiver, and that will take about a year bago ka magkaroon ng decision. And you don't even know kung ang waiver po ninyo will be approved or denied. So kung ma-approve yan, of course, mag-start ka ulit ng mga process ng visa, yung pag-update ka ng mga medical examination at saka mga affidavit support. And not only that, yung medical mo, magre-redo ka na ulit if it's more than a year. Pero ang masaklap po nito is if your case is denied, right, then you have to stay there for 10 years, from your last entry. So sa mga kababayan natin na overstay at they cannot adjust status in the US because they are already overstayed at they're not subject or qualified or protected under yung 245I na sinasabi natin, any petition filed before 2001 or before 1998. So kung wala sila noon, they cannot adjust the status kahit available na ang visa ng kanilang magulang. So ang remedyo dyan, Kuya Yo, itatawag natin provisional unlawful presence bar. Right? So bago po uuwi ang ating mga kababayan para sa kanilang visa interview, magfa-file muna sila habang nandito sa US ng waiver, di ba? So parang pangunahan muna, ito yung programa rin ni President Obama where instead na mag-trigger yung 10-year bar pag umalis sila, habang nasa Amerika, right, sasabihin mo sa National Visa Center, I would like to file for a provisional waiver para hindi po nila i-terminate yung inyong visa application for inaction. So habang hinihintay yung provisional waiver na yan, right, nandito ka sa US, you stay with your spouse or with your petitioner, your parent, take care of them. Then once the provisional waiver is approved, right, you're able to prove that your parent or your qualifying relative, your spouse, would suffer extreme hardship pag hindi po ma-grant ang inyong visa. So if that is approved, babalik ka ulit sa National Visa Center for Processing. Doon muna isasubmit yung mga civil documents, yung mga visa fees, yung mga affidavit support, and doon mo na rin hintayin yung interview mo. So once you get that interview at the consulate or the embassy, doon pa lang po kayo uwi. Right? Before the interview, take your medical exam, wait for the result, bring it at the embassy, and magpa-interview po kayo sa embassy. Then yung pag-uwi mo sa Pilipinas, para lang po kayo nagbakasyon, di ba? So usually before the pandemic and during Obama's time, yung mga client namin, Kuya Yo, tatlong linggo lang, nakakabalik na sila, right? After the approval ng provisional waiver. Wala naman naging issues. We make sure the firm will evaluate your case that wala kang other grounds of inadmissibility except for that overstay. Kasi kung may mga other grounds, Kuya Yo, like misrepresentation or crimes, hindi ka eligible dito sa provisional waiver. But we make sure Reeves Immigration Law Group, 99% of our clients are able to come back without issue. So yun po ang process ng mga kababayan natin na hindi po pwedeng makapag-adjust ng status dito sa US.
All right, napakaganda mga information mga kababayan from Attorney Diza. And again, for those late tuners, so for those who've just joined us, we're talking about getting or obtaining your green card through the consular processing, meaning you are outside of the United States. In contrast to the conversation that we had on the previous episode na adjustment of status, na dito naman sa loob ng United States makukuha ang green card. Attorney, isisingit ko lang itong ilang mga pumasok na mga inquiry sa atin when we posted this topic on our Facebook page. EB3, we talked about it on previous episodes. It's current and napakasaya ng mga posibleng pwedeng mag-apply for EB3 dahil hindi sila matagal maghihintay katulad ng a few years ago when you have to wait for a long time. If somebody applied for an EB3 through obviously through an employer and then available yung visa and nasa Pilipinas sila or other parts of the world, so yung kanilang way of going into the United States is to get the green card through the EB3 petition, and it's going to be through consular processing din po, attorney, ano?
Correct. All people who are outside the United States, Kuya Yo, they do consular processing. Whether the petition is through family-based, right, spousal petition from parents or children, and employment-based green card, yung EB1, EB2, EB3, lahat yan, Kuya Yo, dadaan ng consular process. And the good thing, as you mentioned about the EB3, is current and available, right? So once the I-140, the employer's petition is approved, it goes to the National Visa Center also, like kagaya ng family-based, and you have to submit the civil documents and pay for the required fees. Then wait for your interview appointment. So that's how it works. In fact, during President Trump's suspension of entry of immigrants, Kuya Yo, people who are in the medical industry, medical profession, they're exempted.
Tuloy-tuloy sila.
The suspension, tuloy-tuloy sila. So make that argument kung kayo po ay isa sa mga qualifications. Even this time of Biden administration, Kuya Yo, you can always make or request and expedite the case because you are on this group of medical professionals.
Timetable, attorney. Say, for example, mga nurses, our friends from the Philippine Nurses Association here in Nevada, and of course, I'm sure other chapters as well are getting a lot of questions about that, EB3 being current. How ballpark figure, how long will it take for a nurse in the Philippines applying for an EB3? They found an employer, say, for example, in Texas or dito sa Las Vegas, and petitioned them for an immigrant visa. Ballpark, how long will it take, attorney, before they get their interview and finally get the green card and come over here to the United States?
We have to distinguish. I know you mentioned sa Pilipinas, pero bigyan din natin yung mga nasa Amerika. Let's say may mga tourist visa sila, we have to discuss your situation with the lawyer if you can adjust here, right? If the applicant, Kuya Yo, has met all the qualifications, right, like the NCLEX and the TOEFL and CGFNS, everything, right, kompleto sila ng requirements, at nakahanap sila ng employer, they can actually change status, Kuya Yo. So for example, they are on a family, not a family base, but they're on a non-immigrant visa category, kagaya ng student, or tawag nito, H1Bs or E2s or derivative sila ng mga asawa nila sa H1Bs, right, or E2s. Yung sa tourist visa, of course, that would be subject to other discussion later on because of the immigrant intent na sinasabi. So but once they are in the US, actually, Kuya, they can file for the green card right away, right? The petition and the green card right away, as long as the as of now it's available and current. Now, the way I explain it sa mga kababayan natin sa mga RN eligible for petition, Kuya, para silang, pag nakahanap sila ng employer, is para silang nag-asawa ng US citizen. Diba? Na available kaagad ang visa. So you don't have to wait for the priority date. Unlike, as you mentioned, in the past na, 5 to 7 years. Ngayon, parang, andyan yung petition, kompleto yung requirements ng applicant, or yung employee, and then the employer can file concurrently the immigrant visa petition and the adjustment of status. Now, sa mga kababayan natin nasa labas ng US, they do consular processing. The I-140, Kuya Yo, may dalawang bagay yan. Yung pwedeng i-expedite, and you have to pay extra. I think it's $1,225, right? Para madesisyonan ka agad yung I-140 and you have the result in 15-30 days. So that's how fast it is. So pag na-approve yan, it goes to the NBC for processing and you have to wait for 6 months. And then it goes to the embassy for interview. So in that situation na expedite, siguro mga 6 months time. Well, I'm talking about pre-pandemic, right? But with the pandemic, there might be a lot of issues surrounding the interviews at the embassy kasi 100% Kuya Yo, na-interview yan eh. Wala yung tipong yun i-apply mo yan online, lahat ng mga applications, and then matatanggap na lang yung visa mo in the mail. No, hindi ganon. You expect that the embassy the US embassy where you live will call you for an interview. You know, you present yourself before the embassy officials, you know, to determine whether you're eligible for a visa. Now, to answer your question, the processing time for the I-140 range from 6 months to a year, right? Kung hindi siya expedited. Right? So that's the approval. So once it's approved, it goes to the NBC for probably another 6 months. So I would safely say, Kuya Yo, kung walang other issues with regard to that, maybe in about 1 year to 1.5 to 2 years, you know, may interview na ang mga kababayan natin who were a beneficiary of an I-140 for an EB3 petition.
Wow, okay. So, mga kababayan, yung nagpadala ng question na yan, at least nabigyan po kayo ng linaw and some timeline para makita nyo. Kasi yung iba attorney, iniisip nila, akala nila mga 7 years pa rin ang hinihintay. So, medyo maganda-ganda ngayon.
Maganda yan, Kuya, especially yung may mga kilala ka dito, mga employer, right, na mga, you know, are willing to file a petition. But of course, i-remind din natin, mga kababayan natin, that you becoming a registered nurse in the Philippines or Europe, you know, you still have to take the examination in the US, right? So may mga examination naman dyan sa, I think meron sa Bangkok and even in Manila at one time, right? To take the NCLEX, pass that, and probably, you know, get your license and be able to find an employer and immigrate here through the registered nurse petition or EB3.
All right. So, but of course, mga kababayan, you still have to consult with yung mga may alam sa ganito, katulad ng mga kaibigan natin from Reeves Immigration Law Group kasi marami pang ibang mga kailangang ayusin. Like, for example, I think some of the states will require you to have a social security or something like that before you can even start working. So, let's keep the conversation going, mga kababayan, right here at PHLV Radio. On this post, you can post your questions and then we'll just forward it to Attorney Diza and then para mabigyan kayo ng linaw regarding all of this. I'm sure marami pa kayong mga tanong regarding this kasi lahat kayo kumbaga ay gusto nang bumiyahe at this point in time. Marami na attorney, you know, yesterday in our program, another program here, we had the Philippine Airlines. We were talking to them and they were saying like, oh, it's exploding and everyone wants to travel. So I'm sure marami kayong mga tanong regarding immigration. So let's keep the conversation going. Nandito lamang po ang Reeves Immigration Law Group and ang PHLV Radio sa ating Immigration Law on your side para po sa inyong mga katanungan regarding sa inyong travel. Sa inyong, lahat tayo gusto nang mag-travel. Whether gusto nyo maging immigrant na kaagad or maging turista muna. Just consult our friends from Reeves Immigration Law Group. Attorney, gusto ko sana maitanong kung with the, say for example, dito sa Las Vegas, with our opening na 100%, ganun na rin ba yung mga ano natin, yung mga immigration offices natin, nagbubukasan na rin ba sila?
As of now, Kuya Yo, may mga instructions na sila to you know, to be able to not wear masks when you go to the interviews, you know. May mga instructions sa other offices still required to wear masks. Some offices they don't, so we just need to watch out for that when we advise our clients, you know. But the key here, Kuya Yo, siyempre nandun pa rin yung, just because of the backlog, you know, it's not something na lahat ini-interview niya. Slowly, I would say that that we are getting more interview appointments already. As I mentioned during our last episode where inuuna nila yung mga, you know, matatagal na, at siyempre yung mga naturalization applications, you know, between adjustment of status and other applications and naturalization, ang priority nila is, you know, to call people who have, you know, naturalization applications. But now, as we mentioned, ang trend, marami na po tayong natatanggap na mga interviews for family, for spousal petitions, and also employment-based cases. So sa mga kababayan natin naghihintay, hopefully, malapit na rin po ang inyong interviews kasi nagre-reopen na po ang mga USCIS offices in the United States.
Awesome. That's so wonderful to hear na dahan-dahang nanunumbalik sa normal ang ating mga opisina, especially the immigration offices here in the United States. Attorney, maitanong ko na rin yung ating law firm, ang Reeves Immigration Law Group. What is it in California? I mean, we heard na magbubukas na rin ng like a certain degree?
June 15, Kuya Yo. June 15, I think we are doing a reopening, full reopening, full capacity sa mga offices, sa mga public establishments and services. Open na po tayo. Although ang opisina namin, we still require our staff to wear masks and practice social distancing. And we require our staff to provide a vaccination records, right? Para hindi masyadong affected naman yung mga may mga medical conditions despite the fact that we are all vaccinated. So that's a good news sa mga kababayan natin. We are also slowly reopening and as of now, hopefully we have final guidance by June 15 whether we now require our clients to come visit us in the office. But as of now, Kuya Yo, I would still recommend the Zoom conference and conversation with client is almost the same as in person, di ba? As long as you can convey yung yung problem nyo, and you can fully understand yung abogado at yung nagkakaintindihan naman through telephone or through Zoom, and that's still the best way, just to avoid kung mayroon pang mga variants ng COVID-19. But hopefully tuloy-tuloy na po tayo. We're moving towards summer. Sana ma-enjoy natin ang summer, di lang dito sa US, pati sa Pilipinas. And I know we're hoping and praying that the Philippines would recover as well. We still receive many news that a lot of our kababayans are affected with the COVID-19. So hopefully kayo po dyan, mag-ingat pa rin kayo, right? And get vaccinated if you're able to.
Ako, maraming salamat, Attorney. At this point in time, I'll give you the floor once again to address our audience, Attorney, regarding future plans or any activities that you have with the law firm and any other messages that you'd like to convey to our audience. Go ahead, po.
Yes, Kuya Yo, ang Reeves Immigration Law Group, as we mentioned, is practicing immigration only in the United States. It's a federal practice, mga kababayan. So ang aming practice hindi lang limited sa Nevada or sa California or sa Pilipinas. So we have many clients all throughout the United States. So nasa East Coast pa man kayo, sa New York o sa New Jersey or sa Midwest, sa kagaya ng Illinois, right? Or dito sa West Coast, marami rin tayong client of course from other states. We do represent clients all throughout the US. Mayroon lang a client din from Alaska who just called me today, right, asking for immigration questions. So don't be confused kasi ang immigration is a federal practice. And the good thing about our firm as well is we have office in Makati and China who would assist our clients sa kanilang mga application forms. Now, we still offer free legal consultation at this time. And the partners are contemplating of requiring $100 consultation soon. So take advantage of the free consultation, mga kababayan, right? To discuss your immigration issues. Anyway, even if it goes back to the $100 consultation, Kuya Yo, that would be credited towards your contract if you finally decided to hire our services. You'll be talking to an immigration specialist. All of the partners rather are immigration specialists by the State Bar of California, and most of our attorneys are hardworking and they take care of the cases. And very timely yung ating napag-usapan ngayon, and in the past episodes where, getting the green card and acquiring green card here or in the US. And at Reeves Immigration Law Group, we understand po ang value ng family kasi lalong-lalo na po kayo na gustong ma-reunite with your children, with your parent, with your grandchildren. We are here to help you. It's also people who wants to come here through employment base as a pag-usapan natin, Kuya Yo, and expand your practice, professional practice as a registered nurse in the US. We are here also to support. We understand the complexity of the case, and that's what we are for. to help you navigate, what do you call this, the hard and voluminous documentation required by the embassy. And then National Visa Center will help you navigate the process to make it easier for you to understand. So that by the time you go to the interview, medyo madali na lang po pag meron po kayong preparation and guidance from an immigration specialist. Maraming salamat ulit Kuya Yo, and sa mga kababayan natin, patuloy po kayong makinig at manood sa ating programa at i-share po ninyo ang ating mga episode. Maraming salamat at mabuhay po kayong lahat.
Naku, maraming salamat, Attorney Diza, and regards sa ating staff dyan sa Reeves Immigration Law Group. They have offices here in Los Angeles area and in San Francisco, California, China, and in Makati sa Pilipinas. And we'll flash it on the screen, mga kabigan. And the website is www.rreeves.com. All right. So, mga kabigan, nagagaling po sa Las Vegas. Ito po si Kuya Yo sa PHLV Radio. And this episode is available on our social media platforms, nandyan sa Facebook, YouTube, and also on our Amazon Fire TV channel, and also as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, dalhin nyo ang ating podcast. Ilagay po sa inyong mga cellphones para mapakinggan nyo saan man po kayo pumunta. Kasama nyo pa kami ni Attorney Diza dito sa Immigration Law on Your Side. So hanggang sa susunod, mga kaibigan, thank you so much, Attorney. We will see you next time right here at Immigration Law on Your Side on PHLV Radio. We will see you next time.
Reeves Immigration Law Group has been representing immigrants for nearly 40 years. Reeves Immigration Law Group has been fighting for its clients through experience and expertise. With immigration lawyers you can access at reasonable fees, even on Saturday. Payment plans are also available. Call us for your immigration solutions. We can do worldwide telephone and Skype consultations. Reeves Immigration Law Group, 1-800-795-8009. Reeves Immigration Law Group has offices in Los Angeles, San Francisco, China, and Philippines. See us at www.rreeves.com. Reeves Immigration Law Group, 1-800-795-8009.
Reeves Immigration Law Group has just brought you Immigration Law on Your Side. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Pacific on PHLV Radio. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.